Alrighty, for those of you just joining in, we're just about ready to start here. My name is Chris Bartell, and I'm a brand engagement strategist who turns mild-mannered leaders and brands into superheroes. And we'll get more into that later. That's a little bit of my power pitch. And so that's what we're really here to discover today is your power pitch. And so if you have not done so yet and can download the PDF that we sent along this morning, that would be fantastic. If you need it, I think we can actually add it to here as well. So let me know if you need the PDF, and go ahead and download it, but don't peek too far ahead yet, because we'll get into it in a moment. But that's your worksheet that you're going to use today as well as in the future. So anyway, we'll get started here in just a second. But anyway, my background, just to give you a little bit about me, is that I'm actually a marketing and branding guy, and what you'll see today is a little bit of the process that I've honed over the years for personal brands, and it really comes out of the corporate branding process that I walk brands through. So whether you're a solopreneur or an entrepreneur or switching careers or looking really to take your career to the next level, I think that building a personal brand is just a must these days. And I'll show you why in just a few minutes. But today we're going to start this process. We're going to kickstart the building of your personal brand. So welcome to the Power Pitch Workshop, and usually I do this in person, and so this is a little bit different for me to do it via webinar. But what I'm excited about is the fact that it will be canned and available for those who want to join later or come back and look at it. And in the meantime, since we're live here right now, feel free to ask questions just along the way, and I'll do my best to answer them as we go, or I may hold off on a few questions, and you can feel free to just toss those into the chat there on the screen. And again, if you haven't downloaded the worksheet, let us know. We'll try and attach it here as well. And again, don't skip ahead if you're looking at that worksheet, but we'll get to it all in just a few moments. And we're actually going to take a few breaks along the way. We're going to take 2 4-minute breaks as we work on some of these steps here and working on your personal brand power pitch. But basically, I'll let you know when that happens when we get rolling here. And today, what we're going to cover first is we're going to talk about the 3 P's of personal branding. And what I say is that instead of, you've probably heard of the 5 P's, the 4 P's, or the 6 P's, or whatever it is in marketing or advertising, but these are what I call the 3 P's of personal branding, and really boils down to positioning, packaging, and promoting. So positioning is what we're going to focus on a little bit today, and it's really about positioning the uniqueness of who you are, why you do what you do, how you do it uniquely, and of course, what that means to the world. And also, the packaging really boils down to what are you presenting out there into the world? Sort of not just your personality, but how does that personality play out on the web or in social media? And it really kind of is that look, tone, and feel, as we like to say in the brand world. And then promoting yourself, of course, that really boils down to networking like crazy and connecting with folks and in the real world as well as the online world. And so, but first, what we're going to do first is, since I know you all have your smartphones on you, is we're going to take a little smartphone break here, all right? So what I want you to do is I want you to think of about 6 people, 6 individuals that maybe you've known you for a long, long time, and what you're going to send them is this little text message, or you can post it on social media as well. If you want to post this on your Facebook or send a Facebook message to somebody or an Instagram message, that sounds great, however you want to do it. But what I want you to send out there is, help wanted. I'm doing a personal brand exercise. What 2 to 3 words would you use to describe me? Or you can say, what would you say are my superpowers? And I put a little hashtag there. That's my little hashtag I love using. But you don't have to do that. It's just for fun for me. So anyway, what you can do is just literally, you can keep it as short and sweet as you want. I'm going to give you a few minutes here just to send this out to a few folks that you know that are close to you. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put your smartphone down and away, stick it in airplane mode. So after you've posted this, we'll give everybody a couple of minutes here just to send this message out. You can keep it short and sweet too, and just say, hey, so-and-so, what would you say are my superpowers? Can you give me a couple of words to describe what you would say would be my superpowers? And we're going to look back at these in a little bit after we do some exercises here. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to babble here for a couple of minutes, and that will give you a chance to send this out to people. What's really, really interesting, and I don't want you peeking later. I want you to just put your smartphone away or whatever device you're using to watch this. I don't want you looking back at Facebook or your text messages or iMessage right now because we're going to look at that later. So do your best to hide those things and go ahead and send this message out. And then we will peek at what folks say later. And what's really, really fun, as you're going to see here, is it's really interesting what people say. And it's always positive. So far anyway, every time I've ever done this, it's always been positive. And it always gives people some really great insights as to, wow, what do people say about me? What do people think about me? It's really, really interesting because sometimes people receive some feedback that, gosh, they haven't really thought about, since like grade school. So it's actually pretty fun because in this place, in this space where we're talking about personal brands and we're thinking about, gosh, what am I doing with my career or what do I want to position myself as, all of that, we tend to get really caught up in what we do versus who we are. And so we're going to talk a bit more about that in a little bit. But this helps us get out of that mindset, if you will. So we'll give you another minute there. And what I'm going to talk about just briefly is what the heck is a personal brand? Everybody's got probably an idea in their heads of what it might be. Is it your job title? Is it your years of experience? Is it what you just see on LinkedIn? Is it your strengths or your personal mission? Or is it what drives you, what motivates you, your passions? Well, what I like is this Jeff Bezos quote. He says, your brand, or in this case, your personal brand, is what people say about you when you are not in the room. Now, that can be kind of heavy and feel kind of heavy at first, but it's actually the truth. That's what brands are all about. So how you feel about a brand, whether it's Apple or Coca-Cola or anyone like that, or Amazon, in this case, thinking of Jeff Bezos, then that's what your brand stands for, at least in the minds of others. So what I like to say is that really your personal brand is just the way that people feel about, interact with, and really experience the brand that is you anywhere. And it really boils down to being authentic and true and real, but also this is about differentiating yourself. So we're going to talk a bit about that and how we get there. In terms of the brand world, and when we talk about brands are really about building belief and trust and positioning the brand as a leader, or in this case, positioning ourselves as leaders. It's about building influence and having that connection with a wonderful network of people. It's about building opportunities, and transformation is a word we use often when we're talking about brands and brand building. And that transformation has to do with not just you personally, as we're talking about your personal brand. It actually has to do with the transformation that you offer others, people you work for or people you want to connect with. And what is really great, and one of the big reasons why I think this is important, is your personal brand is really the one thing, it's this one differentiator you actually can control, because you can't control maybe what the company is doing. You can't control what the economy is going to do. But when it boils down to it, this is really about playing the long game of building a personal brand that's going to connect and engage with people. And as a matter of fact, you can just ask some of these personal brands. Some of them may be your favorites, and some of them not so much. But either way, whatever you feel about these folks, they are fantastic examples of personal branding, including our president, so who got to where he is because of a personal brand. So anyway, what's really great is these people have obviously spent years building up a personal brand, but what's great is that we actually get to too. And even if we're not folks like Oprah or Tony Robbins or Richard Branson, but it's a fantastic opportunity these days to become, really seen as a unique, different, highly skilled type of individual. So let's see. Really, it's like I said, it's about playing the long game here. And when we talk a little bit about transformation, it's about how you bring that value to others. And thus, I think it really secures what your future holds. So how are we going to get there? Well, really, like I said, the brand is that one thing you can control, whether it's on LinkedIn or your website or whatnot. But what I really love about it is that the objective of building a personal brand is to engage people, or as I like to say, inspire desire. Inspire people to want to work with you, want to hire you, work with your company, for instance. So that's really what it's all about. Now, the problem is what we're going to talk about here briefly. I'm giving you a little overview, and then we're going to dive into the nitty-gritty of the worksheet here in a moment. But I'm just putting this out there as to why this is important, and I'm going to briefly run through this here. A lot of times, folks go out there just talking about their what they do, and this was animated, but it's not here on WebEx, so that's all right. But usually, people go out there just talking about what they do, and those are all those skills and everything you see on LinkedIn. And the problem with that is that just doesn't differentiate you, right? So, and in some cases, maybe you talk about how you uniquely do things. Those often involve your character traits. I happen to be an Eagle Scout, and so we follow the Scout law of trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. Fantastic character traits, but it still doesn't necessarily differentiate me or tell you much about me. Some folks might go out there as to their why, like in those other personal brands we're looking at as, think of Oprah, for instance. Fantastic example of showcasing a why, and that's fantastic if you have a personal mission, personal manifesto, and have already gone through a process where you're thinking about how you transform other people's lives. But really it boils down to discovering that who. Who are you uniquely? What is the thing that really, what are the superpowers you have? And that includes who you are, why you do what you do, how you do it uniquely, and what. And so what we actually want to do is sort of turn this around a bit, and we want people to see from that who on in. And this is what really building a relationship is all about. A long-term relationship involves, which is like building a brand, is about engaging with the unique essence of the brand, the who the brand is, and then connecting people with the why of the brand, the mission or vision of it. And then, of course, the how in terms of branding. Branding is, how do you treat customers and whatnot. But this, for us, has to do with our character and the people, how people experience us. And then, of course, then we talk about our whats. Because, again, the whats are just, similar to what so many people have out there when it comes to, hey, I'm a marketing person, right? So I can say I'm a marketing guy, and then what? I'm competing against, millions of marketing guys on the entire West Coast, right? So that's not very differentiating, is it? So really it starts with discovering that who, why, and how. And as I like to say, it's really about planting a seed. And that's this power pitch that we're talking about. And the objective of it is for people to say, tell me more. So when I talk to people about mild-mannered brands into superheroes, it's funny because I always get a tell me more statement. It could be, what are you talking about? Just some branding, blah, 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 or marketing, blah, blah, blah. And I say, actually, what I do is blank, 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 blank. And it's great. Depending on the audience I'm talking to, it gives me an opportunity to tell people more about what I do and how I do it uniquely. So anyway, we're going to get there with you as well today. So like I always say is that if you don't define that personal brand, the world is going to define it for you, and you're just going to be another blank, whatever it is, whatever category you play in. And, well, thanks. Everyone's loving this. Yay! That makes me happy. Anyway, so weird to be here and doing this on a webinar instead of being in front of like 60 or 100 people. So it's a little different for me, but I love it anyway because I get to share this with you folks. So, all right. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to prepare to inspire desire because that power pitch is really about getting immediate connection and really being authentic as to who you are, why you do what you do, and how you do it. And what's really, really interesting about this process is it can really bring you back to the uniqueness of who you are and really give you that power and confidence and really can become, I know it can sound silly and foofy here, but it really can become a motivational manifesto. So I'm going to show you how that works, even with me walking into this room, how it plays out. And what I love is that if anything comes out of this is that you will have just sort of your own mantra that you can say to yourself about who you are and how you can uniquely inspire others to engage with you. It's really fantastic. So, okay, here we go. Enough of my babbling about all this wonderful branding stuff and personal brands. Let's unleash your superpowers. So what it boils down to, this is the power pitch magic formula, as I like to say, and this is really the starting place for it, okay? So it's going to look something like this. I am a or an, this is where your superpowers come in, and that's your who. I do these certain things for this certain audience so they can experience transformation. So back to what I talked about, the branding world is we like to teach brands what is the thing that really transforms the customer or the client through the, not just products and services, but who you are as a brand? That's where we want to get. So in my case, here's an example, right? You've already heard me say turn mild-mannered leaders or brands into superheroes. My who part is brand energizer and cheerleader. Now, I've actually played with this over the years as to how to use this, because what's interesting is the brand energizer and cheerleader helps me center myself as to who I am. Now, I may not actually use those exact words out there, but what I want to get across is that, you know what, if anything transpires, I want people to know that I am their brand energizer and cheerleader. But what's great is that this concept of mild-mannered brands into superheroes, again, the objective is to get them to say, tell me more. And so what I can then say to them is something like this. I can say, oh, I create 90-day action plans to kickstart a company who is maybe stalled in their marketing efforts. Or I help brands uncover really what they need to do to better engage their audiences for long-term growth. Or I help them uncover their vision and mission, that kind of thing. Because that's a lot more interesting and engaging and appealing, and it hones in onto what they may be seeking, right? So the other thing I might play with here, and we're going to talk about this a little later, is instead of brand cheerleader and energizer, I can tweak that based on the audience I'm talking to. So for you guys listening in right now and watching, is I can say, oh, I'm a personal brand creative director, or I'm a brand marketing consultant. And the reason we sometimes use things like that is because people are funny. They want to put us in a box. I'm in the room with the wonderful social media crew here. And so if they go out there saying that, oh, I'm a social media expert, that's fantastic, because it does immediately put you in a bit of a framework in terms of the mind of the person you're talking to. But then from there, you want to shove in that differentiator, that unique essence of you. All right, so how do we get there? That's the next step here. What I want you guys first to do here is we're going to take about 4 minutes, and you're going to pull up that PDF, and you're going to start on page 1. And this is all about getting you in your superpowers mindset, as I like to say. And the reason is because in a place like this where we're talking about personal brand, you may be looking to take your career to the next level. You're probably pretty focused on your professional world and space, which is fantastic. But I want to pull you out of that a little bit, and because what we're trying to do here is get back to that essence, the uniqueness of you here. So we're going to take a few minutes, and these series of questions you see on the first page of the PDF are really about getting you thinking about when was it when you were just totally awesome, when you were just rocking it for somebody, for a team, for a person, for a client, a customer, whatever it is. I want you to think about that. I want you to write a little piece about that. And then I want you to describe, what do you envision for it could be a life goal, and that sounds pretty heavy in terms of, we're just going to talk about this in 4 minutes, but kind of top of mind here. I want you to think about maybe a goal. It could be, in this case, sort of an 18-month goal of what you want your personal brand to be seen as. It could be, what do you sort of envision happening in your ideal world in 18 months for you? And I want you to also describe really the passions and the people you help most. And then at the end of this, I want you to write down, just at the top of your mind, what are your top 3 superpowers. So again, I'm going to give you a few minutes here. We're going to attempt to play a little Superman music to get you inspired. I have no idea if it's going to come across, but we'll try it anyway. So hold on 1 minute. And I want you to spend just about 4 minutes on this. Don't peek at your smartphone or wherever you posted or messaged people. I don't want you looking at that yet. We're going to get there in just a moment. So hold on 1 moment. I'm going to try and play a little music here, and we'll see how this pans out. And hopefully you can hear it. So what we'll do is we're just going to give everybody a few minutes here to just spend a little bit of time on that first piece. All right. I know that's not enough time to do everything there, but we just want to kind of get you started, because I want you to come back to this a little bit later and actually play with it a bit more. Actually, all these little exercises here, there's about 4 of them. What I want you to do is actually come back to them later. We're going to give you an overview of everything here today, because there's not tons of time, but you'll come back to it and keep massaging and playing with it. But for now, let's go to the next step here. Step 2 is defining your personal brand. So what you're going to do is I'm going to have you spend another about 4 minutes I'm going to try and play the Superman music again. We'll see if this pans out. And what I want you to do is just brainstorm. Literally just brain dump about as many words as you can that describe you uniquely. Think about what do you bring to the table? How do you engage with people? What do you what's that spark that you bring to a situation? And so just literally write down 40 words. They can be hyphenated, but ideally not. This is just kind of a big brainstorm here. Then after, and you don't have to have 40, but I'm going to have you do at least 40 eventually, because I'll show you why in a moment. And what I want you to do is write as many as you can in the next 4 minutes. Then go ahead and look at wherever you were texting some folks, wherever you were messaging some people, and then see what they said and add those in. It'll be really interesting to see what they say. So feel free. We're going to have you spend another few minutes on this. Just literally, you can fill it out. You should be able to fill it out on the PDF. It should be sort of more like a form there, and then you can save it if that works for you. Or if you don't have the PDF in front of you, I should have asked that earlier on. Sorry about that. But if you don't, then you can literally just type them up in a note in your smartphone. So that can be an easy way to do it. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to have you do this over probably about the next week. Is just keep adding words to it. And I'll show you why here in a minute. And you're just going to keep adding words. So it could be that eventually you put them in your smartphone, just because that may just be an easier place to have them as you kind of think of words as you go about your week. So anyway, so we'll give you 4 minutes. So go ahead, just keep throwing ideas there onto the PDF. You can go back to Facebook, go back to your text messages now, and kind of peek. If you're feeling a little stuck, and again, I want you to sort of think about, all right, what do I bring to the table uniquely? What is like something special when I'm, again, coming back to that first page? What was when I was in the zone? What was I bringing to it? Was I bringing energy? Was I just bringing really great analytical thinking? Was I really bringing just ideas? And was I just being super hyper creative? So really think about those things. That's a really great way to start. All right. So I know that's not enough time to get all the words down and whatnot, but that's okay. Because like I said, you can put a note in your phone, whatever you sort of carry around. Some people actually do it on a notepad. I know it's crazy, so old school thinking, but you actually have a notepad that write things down, or a journal can be fantastic. Whatever you carry with you, if you carry a little journal in your purse or whatnot, or your man purse, if you've got one of those, whatever works for you. But over the next week, just start thinking, sort of thinking about what other words can I use to describe me, and as you go about your week, you'll come up with new words. So that's great, because what we're actually going to do next is you're going to actually lay them out on the table, and then you're going to categorize them. I'm going to show you why, because even though, let me just show you this here real quick here. You're going to lay them out here like my friend Ann. She had all these words, and she puts them on note cards, okay? And this is what I want you to do is after, over the next, when you're kind of feeling like, okay, I think I've got 40, or I'm going crazy. In some cases, what happens is you just start going. You just start realizing, oh, my gosh, I've got more words. I can just keep adding. That's fantastic. What I want you to do is add them to some note cards. Best way to do it is you have note cards or sticky notes. Sticky notes can work too, but they kind of can fall all over the place. And literally, you're going to lay them out on the table, just like you're seeing here with Ann. And what you're going to do is then look at them all and pick 6, your top 6 words that you think really describes you uniquely, that describe that essence, that thing that drives you, for instance. It could be, and it doesn't have to be how you describe yourself professionally. It actually should be who you are, right? So it should encompass all of it. So you'll see here that what Ann has here. Let me see if I can actually read them here. What you then do is you put your top 6 at the top of the table or whatnot. Then you start taking those other words and putting them underneath one of the top 6 words. The goal here is that what you're going to do is create a little stack, just like you see here with Ann. And that stack is what becomes a unique definition of that word for you. So even if somebody else out there says, oh, I'm an energizer too, and I say, oh, well, that's great. Well, what does that mean to you? Well, I have a unique definition for it for myself, just like Ann does here with her words. So what you may discover as you're doing this, as you're stacking them up and playing with them, is you may discover that, ooh, I have another word that actually fits better than one of these top 6. That's fantastic. Put that word in as well, or put that word on top. Or you may discover that when you have this stack of words, you may discover that one of those words underneath it actually is a better word that describes you than the one you originally chose. And that's fantastic too. Some cases we do allow for a hyphenated word, but that's not preferable. So what you're going to do then is you take the words and then you lay them out, typically just lay them out horizontally. So you've got your main word there on the left. You put all the other words, the supporting words underneath it, so you can kind of look at it as a definition. Okay, then you can write it down. You can actually write it there in the I'll show you how this works. You can actually write it there in the PDF if you want. But the goal, again, is, especially if you're not a writer, to just get something on paper where you can say, like, oh, I like how that describes me. That's fantastic. Now, if you're really gung-ho, you could be like my friend Peter here, who had 100 words. So that was pretty hardcore, and I think he's the only one who's gotten to 100. So that was pretty amazing. And what he kept thinking was, there's no way I'm getting these down to 6 words. No way! And we did. And you can see them there, hopefully. What's great is that he is actually, his background is in industrial design, shoe designer, and I'm going to show you some of his words, what he came up with in a little bit, which is fantastic. It's so unique in how he thinks and whatnot. Same with Anne. Anne's a pharmacist. You wouldn't think a pharmacist needs to do personal branding, but she was looking for a gig and really wanted to plant that seed into other people's minds about what she did when she's doing interviews. And she texted me not long ago and said, woohoo, celebrated because she got a job. That's really awesome. So she just was so thankful. It was really great. Anyway, so if you've got 100 words, you can still do it. My words, for instance, ended up being, like I mentioned before, energy, engaged, enthusiasm, cheer, joy, lead. And what happens is I have words underneath each one of these, and then I was able to create definitions. So, for instance, energy. I'm buzzing with it and get to live life, get to give life to others with it. I'm physically, mentally, and spiritually energized. Enthusiasm. I have a positive can-do attitude, and I'm very encouraging of others. I want to encourage others to have a get-to life rather than have to, and I have a zest for life and adventure. So if you were seeing me in person, you'd probably kind of get some of this anyway, so hopefully you're getting some of it here. Engaged. I'm genuinely interested in life and fearless about living it. I am a people person and love to serve. Cheer. I get to cheer for and encourage those around me. I am your cheerleader. So that's where that cheerleader energizer thing plays into. Joy. I am silly, cheesy, fun, and I do goofy voices, and I bring the joy. I'm not going to do any goofy voices right now. But anyway, lead. This was an interesting one because so many people can have this word, but really it boils down to, what does that mean for me? It's not like, I may not be a CEO kind of person, but I step in. I realized after going through the process myself was like, oh, yeah, I'm kind of combine some of these other words. I'm fearless. I jump in with energy, and I take action. And I'm fearless, and I'm a natural master of ceremony. So anyway, so just to kind of encourage you as you're kind of crafting and creating your own definitions here, you don't have to be a wonderful writer. You don't have to be a writer at all, but hopefully this sparks some ideas, because what this is all about, these words here and these definitions become the foundation of your personal brand messaging. And it's actually how we create elevator pitches for companies. Their entire brand messaging stems from it. And so that's why we do it for you as well. Because as you can kind of see here too, what's really kind of interesting back to that personal manifesto thing is that, wait a minute, I've got 6 words here. I know what they mean here in my heart. I know what they mean about me. So if I'm kind of like freaking out about a situation, or, you know, I'm worried about what's going to happen here when we're doing this webinar, I've never done a webinar like this kind before, you know, for this process. And so I can kind of basically say to myself, you know what, if all I know is I'm going to bring energy, enthusiasm, and be engaged, and I'm going to cheer and bring the joy and lead, that's all I know, then that's pretty awesome. So anyway, kind of can become really this sort of manifesto, like especially if you're out there interviewing and all those, you know, really feeling really pressured to do well, you can get caught up in all the things that you should say and that you, oh gosh, did I remember to talk about that project and all that. You know what? It's hard to remember all those things. However, what also is interesting is if you hone in on this power pitch, this manifesto that you're sort of creating here, is that if you go into a meeting or an interview and that's all you've got, what's interesting is it frees your brain to think about all those other awesome things, those what's, remember the what's on the outside circle, that you do. So anyway, I hope that encourages you. So step 3 on the next page there is honing in on the audience. And this has been interesting for me even, as just a brand marketing guy. Well, that's really kind of boring, right? So honing in for me of saying mild-mannered brands. What that means is brands that just sort of are just really struggling. A lot of times it means brands in transition. It means brands that maybe have been around for a long time and they don't know what to do next. So that's where honing in on the audience that you really are awesome working with or being around or engaging with. This is what this is all about. So think about when you're writing up this little piece about your target audience, so to speak, is who do you really change? Who changes because of what you do? It could be their life, it could be their job, it could be making their lives easier in their job, whatever it is. And I want you to describe them in detail. And really, who are they? What is their situation and status? You can kind of write some of these things down right now if you want. We're not going to get into too much detail because I want you to really start thinking about this, because we're not going to finish your pitch today, but we're going to set the stage for you to do so, because there's just not a ton of time left here. But anyway, what's their status, their current situation? What keeps them up at night? And then what is their niche? What is that? It could be an individual or it could be a company, whatever it is. What is that hyper niche that you just really are able to change and transform? Because here's what's interesting is then that helps you focus on that target that you want to go after. And I know it sounds kind of like we're talking about marketing and looking for clients and all that kind of stuff, but it really is about the people you want to connect with and the right connections, companies you want to connect with. So because that's really what's going to get you jazzed too in the long run. Okay, so that's what I want you to think about. What's interesting too is niching. Is the old saying of the riches are in the niches. Boy, I have been really studying this over the past 6 months and just sort of really watching how this works after working on a project where we rebranded the malt behind all of your beer. You're very welcome. It was very exciting. But they're an 80-year-old company. And what's interesting that they didn't really know what to do next. And so what I really realized for myself after working with a group that is focused on beverage branding was that with them, wow, we could really inspire this organization. And what I realized in working with the company called Pale Design was that, wow, focusing on that niche that company has done over the past 10 years, brilliant move instead of being a designer. So my friend Jessica, who runs that company, she was able to hone in on that niche because somebody told her 10 years ago that was going to be a good deal, and that consultant was right. So it's really, I've just been fascinated about how important it is because we're competing across the board against so many, whether it's looking for jobs or clients, customers. Discovering that niche is really, really important, and it's too easy for a lot of us who work with a variety of things, or especially if you're a generalist, kind of like me as a marketing person, or even if you're a financial analyst. Well, what does that mean? Who do you really like working for? Find that niche. It's really fantastic, something to think about as you're honing in on who you're going to talk to, because as we talk about in the next pieces here about packaging and promotion, you start speaking the language of those people that you're wanting to talk to and connect with. All right? Then you're going to actually, and you'll see there on that sheet, you want to find that right verb. This is pretty important, actually, that helps differentiate you. Is it that you just help them along, you guide them, you navigate, you teach, you consult, whatever the word is there, it can be a pretty important word. So hone in on that as well. All right. Then what you're going to do is you're going to put it all together. This is that last part of it. And I want you to just write a draft, not right now because there's not a lot of time left, but as you go about your day-to-day, maybe think about it at lunch, have some nice quiet time. What I tell people is that literally schedule in your calendar, I would say do it right now, is schedule about 30 to 45-minute just quiet sessions to focus on these pieces, okay? Because I want you to get back into that mindset of, gosh, what's the unique thing that drives me, that really gets me jazzed and gets others jazzed about working with me? And so schedule that time and start creating drafts of this thing. And this evolves over time. You don't have to have the final draft, but this is the basic gist of it, the basic algorithm, if you will. Remember, we take that I, am, a, or an, and use some of those keywords from the second section there, and pull in that verb we just talked about. Who is that audience? And really focus on what is that transformation that you're offering them, and really start massaging and playing with it over time. And here are some just quick tips, okay? Is I want you to quickly create the first draft, and you sort of let it steep for a bit, okay? Then you create, like I said, create those other drafts, keep massaging it, playing with it. Again, coming back to those definitions, that's a really fantastic starting place, because it really can help you hone in on that messaging you're going to put out there to the world. And then once you kind of got it figured out, just rehearse it. Rehearse it in the car, or talking to somebody on the phone, or talking to friends, or whatever, or going to Rotary, or whatever the thing is, whatever networking group you do. It's actually kind of a fun place to practice that pitch. And then keep thinking about that niche. I think that's really, really important, because, again, we're competing across the board for whether it's gigs or jobs, whatever it is. Again, coming to that uniqueness of people that you transform is going to be really, really important. And then really prepare to tell them more. And how you do that is, the tell them more is really, really interesting. And knowing who the audiences you're talking to or who you're wanting to connect with is, we as humans love story. That's one of the reasons why I love doing brand work, because I love telling stories. So if you can create or talk about an authentic story that you'd like to share with people, it could be focused on that case study that you kept thinking, oh, I don't want to forget about that case study. It could be a project you're proud of, or just really going into detail as to what this all means, this pitch of yours, because that really helps connect to people. And here's a couple of examples. So Anne, my friend Anne, she no longer is just a pharmacist. Those are her keywords there, right? You see, I'm having a hard time seeing it, but it's completer, steward, efficiency, things like that. She used to just have on her LinkedIn, oh, she's a pharmacist, right? But here's what's really, really fun, is this is what we crafted, is I'm the pharmacy's team captain. I guide my staff towards winning results and with a can-do attitude. I like a good challenge and have passion for creating a go-getter environment and building a team of problem solvers. I'm looking to create a staff of fellow go-getters who are on mission to serve patients and doctors with a positive, we're in this together attitude. And I do it all with a wink and a smile. So that is being her positioning statement, her brand positioning. So it's more than the elevator pitch, right? But for her, one of the focuses was this team captain concept. Just having that picture in her mind of, oh, I'm the team captain. I rally everybody together to be on the same page. Absolutely fantastic, and she got a gig, so that's pretty neat. My friend Peter, he's not just a shoe designer. What's really interesting is we realize that he's actually very analytical about how he goes about it, not just designing to design, but he gets into that nitty-gritty. And you can actually see here's a concept that he had come up with, and it's now showcased obviously on his website, all these ideas. And actually it's an iron, but it's an ergonomic iron that just is this wonderful, wonderful concept and idea. And what happens is, his positioning is, I create impactful experiences for people to enjoy, whether it's the shoes on your feet, the gear for your adventures, or the environment where you relax. My 12 years of product design experience and ferocity for functionality merge into all that I do and be and who I am. So that's kind of how this plays out, right? So it's about planting a seed of the uniqueness, the essence of who you are here, and really differentiating yourself. So it's pulling people out of like, oh, he's a designer or a shoe designer, right? No, really realizing, oh, I create experiences, and I dive into that nitty-gritty to figure out what it is about this thing that we need to create. So there's that. Now back to our 3 Ps, just as a reminder, positioning. We're talking about that today, and I want you to hone in on this. The next step then is the packaging and then promotion, right? And let's see, oh, somebody has a question here. I'll get to that question in just a moment here. And so hone in on that positioning part of it. Oh, and actually, let's see. We have somebody has a question. Could Anne's statement be the start of her LinkedIn headline and summary? Absolutely, it actually is. And I didn't pull the screenshot here, but yes, correct. In those environments, what you can do, and that's what's great about this power pitch, we're going to talk about that in terms of packaging. Well, actually, let's go there right now. Because packaging and promotion, that's what this is all about. So honing in on those areas where, you know, on your Twitter handle or any of those places you're describing yourself, you've only got so many characters you get to use there. So that's a place where you're going to play with that and hone in on that in terms of how you describe yourself. And you're exactly right, Bill, that honing in on that statement, the team captain part of it really comes out for her, for instance. And so, yes, that's where you want to actually play with that. And what's interesting, too, is at the beginning, at the top of LinkedIn, right, you've got a place where you can do your summary. And that's where that power pitch goes. It's a fantastic place for all of us to have that. You can look at mine if you like. And basically, because all the other stuff, all the what's that you've done, that stuff is already there. Same with your resume. What's interesting, too, is this little pitch can be used more in a cover letter than a resume, because resumes now are so much more technical, if you will, when you get through all the little robots that the big companies are using and the search engines the companies are using and whatnot. But what you're doing is, again, planting a seed. And then if you're doing anything else from a packaging perspective, is that packaging really boils down to that look, tone, and feel and how people will perceive you. So it really boils down to that headshot and resume and the website bios. And even if you're working for a company, what a great little tool here where if you are working for a company and everybody has their bios up there, well, why not go into something unique and the essence of those individuals rather than sort of saying the what's. I mean, it's nice to know that people like to hike and bike and fish and things like that. That's great. But what if we could do something more about their passions, what drives and inspires them and motivates them? So the other part of it is back to what you're asking, Bill, about their LinkedIn social media is, yes, you want to create a hierarchy, if you will. So that's why that magic formula there that I use is really a key. Think of that as a way to start describing yourself in those arenas right off the bat. I didn't go into this part, but what we talk about in terms of branding and messaging is that we have our elevator pitch. We then have our lobby pitch, which is as if you're in an elevator going down the lobby and somebody asks, tell me more. You walk out to the lobby and you explain a little bit more about your personal brand, for instance. And then we have what we call the latte pitch, which is if you're going out for coffee to somebody or with somebody, you tell them more. In this case, especially in LinkedIn, what I find is kind of that latte pitch, if you will, ends up being all the other stuff that you see on LinkedIn. So what you want to do is that elevator pitch should be first. And start looking around. Look around. Here's what's interesting, too. Look in your industry. See if anybody's doing this. And I guarantee probably nobody else is doing this. It's so rare when I'm looking on LinkedIn, people leverage that little description and talk about how they help others, how they engage others, what is the uniqueness of who they are. That is a brilliant place to be able to do it. And depending on where you're at, especially in your career, for instance, it may be that you're talking about looking for a certain type of work or whatnot. That's totally fine, too, in terms of that initial description about you. But anyway, at some point, really high up in that hierarchy should be your elevator pitch. All right, so next. Here's just some final thoughts here, and then I can answer other questions if anybody has questions, because, oh, my gosh, I've just babbled for like 50 minutes. I can't believe it. Actually, I can't believe it because I'm a talker. But anyway, for some final thoughts. All right. Really, this takes persistence, building this personal brand. This is the starting point. Then I want you to think about the packaging and promotion part of it. But it really is the beginning. And again, it's that long game that we're playing here because as time goes on, we're competing against more and more people out there in the marketplace. So we've got to start having a take on things, having a position, and really leveraging the fact that we have a position because we showcase ourselves as leaders in our space. And that's when even networking obviously is an absolute must. Getting caught up in the day-to-day of work it's really hard to spend time networking, but it's so important. And it's really important for you to practice your pitch. And then what's really, really awesome is when you've planted that seed in somebody and then they go to your LinkedIn bio or they go to your website or they go to your Twitter feed or become friends with you on Instagram, whatever it is, they go, wow, this is the person that I met. And I actually would like to continue networking, working with, or being a part of what this person is doing. So that's what this is all about. It's about authentically being you in it and having fun. Now, one thing you could do, last tip too, in terms of playing the long game, figuring out what medium is really easy for you to start dabbling in terms of positioning and packaging and promoting yourself in the world. For some of us, it's a website, it's a LinkedIn, it's everything. One benefit to having a personal brand website is that is one place you can control everything that goes on there. And so even on LinkedIn, I think, is really trying to figure out how they can become more of the other social networks. They keep moving things around all the time. So it's kind of one of those places like we're really seeing interesting changes in engagement, and it seems to change all the time because ever since Microsoft bought them, they just keep tweaking on things. Hopefully it'll be good. Hopefully it'll be great in the long run to be able to engage with people. It is a great platform, and but so just keep watching that. So that's why your website and even your social media is like you're kind of beholden to those places if everything you do is in Instagram. However, because who knows what's going to come up next, or if you do everything in Snapchat, fantastic. But figure out what medium kind of works for you in terms and how you like to present yourself. It could be on video. It could be doing stills. It could be just quotes. It could be having a take on things. If it's things you see in your industry, changes that you recommend for people. One tip, though, I would recommend, heard this from another friend of mine who, fantastic idea, is that we tend to want to say like, oh, what somebody may be doing wrong in an industry or a category or whatnot, especially those of us in the branding and marketing space. So what you want to do instead is find something positive and then make a suggestion. So if you have a company that you think like, gosh, I'd really like to work with them or engage with them, maybe I discover some things that they're really doing well and actually publish some things that they might want to fix and think about. You can even write articles, of course, on this, on LinkedIn, publish those. Whatever you do in that space, I highly recommend just backing everything up on your local drive. So you've got your article that you wrote, so in case LinkedIn decides to disappear off the planet at some point, not that it will, but if it changes everything and you lose everything, that would be a real bummer. So back all that stuff up. Anyway, that's it for me today. Does anybody have any more questions? Wow, I totally ate up the whole hour almost. So feel free. Does anybody have any questions? Anyone? Anyone? Doesn't look like it. Oh. Great, here's one. On defining your niche, is it adequate to define your ideal customer who's experiencing a certain problem versus a specific demographic, or is it really important to define the pain point and the specific demographic? Well, in all actuality, I think it's all going to be a part of the same thing. Think about that when we think about transformation and what we actually help people do. There are probably a lot of people in a space that are having similar issues, right? So I would say for those questions, do it all. Actually write all those pieces up. So think about your niche. Who is it? Think about the problems they actually have. And you can think about demographics too, because all of that's actually going to help you define who is that unique individual, category, group, whatever it is that you can really change. And so I would say yes to those things. Actually define all those things out, but they're all probably part of the same. And most likely, a lot of people in the category you want to hone in on that niche that you're wanting to hone in on, they probably have the same problems. And you want to actually try and find those companies, groups, people that do have the same problem. That ends up being your niche, right? Like I say with mild-mannered brands, and talking about, these brands in transition or these brands that have been around for 100 years, and they just go, oh, what do we do next? I have no idea what to do in social media or anything like that. How do we engage people these days? That's a place I happen to do really well at, and so it helps me think about where those places are, where those people are. So for you, it can be the same thing, discovering that niche so that you're really open and aware of those people and what pains they have. One of my words is not so good, but it comes up frequently. That's interesting. Okay. If it's not so good, I'd love to know what level of not so good it is. Because in all actuality, there probably is, let's see if, one of my words, so there's probably some good to it. For instance, my friend Peter, who went through this process, he's very meticulous, shall we say, and super analytical. And he had the same problem. Like, I'm really anal retentive about all this stuff, and I like it. But in all actuality, that's a good thing. So figure out how come that's actually a good thing. If it's that you're so hyper-focused on details, for instance, fantastic. Because in some cases, you actually kind of want to find out how you can help somebody who isn't that way. I'm not sure what the word is, of course, but see if there's probably truth there, but there's probably good truth too. So what's interesting too about these 6 words, and something to be aware of I didn't talk about, is 6 words are one side of a coin, What's on the other side of the coin? So for me, lead and stepping in, I have to actually kind of warn myself because I tend to step in and I say yes to a lot of things. I actually have had to learn over the past few years, like, I'm very aware of that part of me now, of that leading part and stepping in. And there are times I just need to not say yes or really pick and choose. So think of that too. So there may be some truth in that, and just look at both sides of that coin. Anything else? Anything else? Great. If you have any questions, there's my contact info. Feel free to ping me or whatnot. I do this for fun. It is something I just love helping people do. So there's no charge or anything like that. I just love helping people here. So feel free to email me if you have questions or kind of wondering, like, what do I do next? How do I need another set of eyeballs on something. That's fantastic, and we can play with that. So I like to say we'll work for food. So anyway, thank you so much for joining. Is there anything else I need to worry about, think about? We're good? Okay. Slides will be emailed to you, so you'll get that here soon. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to give me a holler.